Welcome to EPG Pathshala. Today we shall be discussing United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, Kyoto Protocol, the first commitment period, that is 2008 to 2012, the second commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol, that is 2013 to 2020, the Paris Agreement, and importantly, the role of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Friends, we all know that climate change is a topic which affects all of us. We all have heard about global warming, a rise in sea temperature, a rise in the level of the sea, and therefore we know that the countries which are having a low-lying coastal zone are going to be severely affected by it. Not only that the climate change leads to higher precipitation or maybe dry spells or maybe longer precipitations or maybe global change in temperature, rise in temperature, but is also going to affect the low-lying countries which low-lying coastal zones which are going to be submerged in water. So therefore, it is affecting all of us. It is going to affect the agricultural production. There is strong evidence to suggest that it is going to severely hit the agricultural production because of change in dry spells, because of change in monsoon patterns and all. And therefore, in this backdrop, we will be studying the international efforts towards adapting to climate change, mitigating the effect of climate change, and preventing climate change by limiting the emission of greenhouse gases, which are primarily responsible for climate change. So friends, we will be analyzing this topic under the headings of, first we will be discussing UNFCCC, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the obligations under the protocol, under the convention, the protocol adopted under it, that is the Kyoto Protocol, which was adopted in Kyoto, Japan, its first commitment period, the targets under the first commitment period, the second commitment period, that is 2013 to 2020, and the much hyped Paris Agreement of 2015. So friends, we will be firstly dealing with United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It is referred to as a framework convention because it provided the framework for climate change legislation or for entering into instruments for preventing, mitigating, and adapting to climate change. It is an intergovernmental treaty and it was negotiated between February 1991 to May 1992 and was finally adopted for the purpose of limiting and dealing with the climate change which is induced by anthropogenic reasons. If we see, the convention was it was opened for signatures at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development held at Rio de Janeiro, that is the Earth Summit, in June 1992. The significance of the convention is that it was adopted at a time when there was not much scientific certainty as to the causes and effects of climate change. However, the world leaders, they had the courage to accept that due to anthropogenic reasons, the climate change is being caused, and therefore they took steps for adoption of international instrument in the form of UNFCCC so that the climate change can be tackled, cured, and mitigated. This convention entered into force on 21st of March 1994, and as of date, it has been ratified by 197 countries. The convention defines climate change to mean such changes in climate which are caused directly or indirectly by human activities, which change the composition of the global atmosphere. As per the convention, the changes introduced by anthropogenic causes must be in addition to natural changes. The objective of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change are to stabilize emission of greenhouse gases and to stabilize their concentration in the atmosphere at such a level so as to prevent interference with the climate and to ensure this goal in a time-bound manner, to ensure that food production is not affected by climate change, and to ensure sustainable economic development. It is based on a very important international doctrine of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. This doctrine means that the climate change is a common responsibility. It is the responsibility of all the nations of the world, whether it's a developed country, developing country, or a least developed country. However, the equity demands Equity and differentiated responsibilities demands that those countries which are having better resources, or those countries which we label as developed countries, they have contributed more to the towards the climate change, because they have exploited natural resources to such an extent, and they are responsible for emission of higher level of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, thereby causing climate change, and therefore they have earned gains and are in a position to fund the projects for climate change, adapting to climate change, and therefore they should share the greater responsibility. Accordingly, the convention places greater burden on the developed countries on the basis of this doctrine of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, and places onus on them to finance the projects and to help the developing countries by way of financial assistance, grants, concessions, and also by technology transfer, so that the developing countries can discharge their onus by utilizing the technology, and they can also contribute towards mitigating the effects of climate change. Therefore, as I said, it is the responsibility of greater responsibilities cast upon the developed countries. It is also recognized by the convention that the level of emission of greenhouse gases is yet to peak, because the developing countries also have got a right to develop, and therefore they have also have got right to exploit their resources, and in the process there would be greater emission of greenhouse gases by the developing countries, and therefore the convention recognizes that that is also going to cause damage to the environment, and of course it is going also to cause climate change. Hence, onus is placed on developed countries, which are detailed in Annex A or Annex 1, to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, and also to help the developing countries in containing GHG, that is greenhouse gases emission, by technology transfer and financial support. Another important principle on which United Nations Framework Convention is based upon is the principle of sustainable development, which calls for taking steps to mitigate and adapt to climate change based on precautionary measures. As I said, that at the time when the convention was adopted, there was not much scientific certainty as to the causes of climate change. Therefore, the convention calls for taking of steps in the event of uncertainty also, based on precautionary principles. The obligations under this convention, or United Nations Framework Convention, are detailed in the convention itself. The convention binds developed countries, which are given in Annex A, and those economies which are in transition to market economy, that is the socialist countries, erstwhile European and socialist countries like belonging to Russian Federation earlier, to prepare national inventory of their greenhouse gas emissions on an annual basis within 6 months from the date of entry into force of the convention, and thereafter to submit this national inventory of greenhouse gases emission on a periodical basis. The purpose is that these countries have been mandated, they were required to bring down the emission of greenhouse gases to 1990 levels within a time-bound period, and also to increase the sinks of GHG. The sinks of greenhouse gases are forests and oceans. Therefore, one of the aims of this convention is to increase the forest cover, so that the forest cover can act as a sink of greenhouse gases, and therefore help in mitigating and help in preventing the climate change. So as I said, the parties are required to report greenhouse gas emissions of the base year, that is 1990 level, and thereafter for subsequent periods, so that to find out whether the measures taken by the parties are sufficient to achieve the objectives of United Nations Framework Convention. And the convention also mandates the Annex 1 parties or Annex A parties to provide financial assistance to developing countries. Other obligations of developing countries are to assist the developing countries, particularly the least developed countries, and those countries which are vulnerable to adverse effects of climate change, to provide financial assistance, to ensure technology transfer. These nations, those who are not listed in Annex A, that is apart from the developed countries, other nations can also contribute, they can also submit their intention to be bound by the commitments under the convention, and therefore all those countries who have submitted their intention to be bound by the convention, they are required to prepare the annual inventory of greenhouse gas emissions, especially those greenhouse gases which are not controlled by Montreal Protocol. As we all know that Montreal Protocol was adopted in Montreal in 1987 to deal with ozone depleting substances, because once we saw that hole in the ozone layer over Antarctica, the entire global community, they reacted and they entered into a protocol under that 1985 convention, Vienna Convention, basically to limit the ozone depleting substances so that the ozone layer can be repaired or that can heal. Therefore, what this convention is dealing with, United Nations Framework Convention, deals with those substances which are not covered by the Montreal Protocol. ODS are covered by Montreal Protocol. Other substances, greenhouse gases, are covered by the 1992 convention, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. The obligations under this convention are to formulate programs for mitigation of climate change, to update those programs on a regular basis, to promote sustainable development, to promote technology transfer to developing countries and especially least developed countries, to increase sinks of greenhouse gases, that is to increase forest cover, and to ensure that the greenhouse gases emitted are consumed by the sinks, that is forest and oceans, to ensure observation of the climate change data, to collect that data, to compile that data so that the policy measures can be taken for preventing, mitigating and adapting to climate change, and also to promote and cooperate in education, training and awareness regarding climate change and the adverse effects of climate change. The convention has established the mechanism in the form of Conference of Parties, which periodically examines the implementation of the convention. Then it also looks at, oversees and supervises the measures undertaken by the parties to the convention, the adequacy of the convention and the measures taken under it, the need to introduce more amendments in the protocols so that the effect on climate change can be prevented, mitigated, and adaptation measures are taken into consideration. The Conference of Parties oversees the institutional arrangements and compliances by the parties to the protocol. These sessions of the Conference of Parties are held on annual basis, where the assessment reports of climate measures and the adequacy of those measures are discussed, and these reports are reviewed and adopted. The Secretariat of the United Nations Framework Convention is at Bonn, Germany. The Secretariat has been established basically to make arrangements for the meetings of Conference of Parties and subsidiary bodies which are established under the convention, to compile and submit reports to the COP, to assist the developing countries in collection and compilation of data, to submit a report on activities, and to ensure the coordination among various bodies which are established under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. If you look at the working of the United Nations Framework Convention, it has also established various subsidiary bodies for scientific and technological advice and subsidiary body for implementation. In addition to this, various ad hoc working groups have been constituted to achieve the objectives of the Framework Convention. Article 11 of the Framework Convention, it contemplates setting up a financial mechanism. As we discussed, that one of the objects of the convention is, or the liability under the convention is, that the developed countries shall help the developing countries financially as well as by technological transfer. And therefore, Article 11 contemplates the setting up of financial mechanism so that the financial help to the developing and least developed countries can be provided by way of grants or concession, or on concessional basis, and also they are helped by technology transfer. Under the convention, Green Climate Fund has been created in the 16th meeting of the Conference of Parties at Cancun in 2010. This Green Climate Fund is administered by the trustee, that is the World Bank. This is an initiative of this United Nations Framework Convention to contribute towards to make a united response to climate change and to ensure that development is in such a manner that the greenhouse gases emission is lesser or is reduced so that we can have a climate resilient development. It must be kept in mind that initially the focus of United Nations Framework Convention was on mitigation, and it was not on adaptation. But after the adoption of Cancun Adaptation Framework at Cancun Climate Change Conference 2010, the focus has now been shifting gradually also to take adaptation measures, because now we have identified and realized that climate change cannot be prevented. What we can do is we can contain it. Therefore, it is required that those countries who are going to be affected by it, they take measures to adapt to climate change. Accordingly, after the Cancun Adaptation Framework was adopted at the Cancun conference in 2010, now the focus is gradually also shifting to adaptation to climate change, and therefore the purpose of this framework, or CAF, Cancun Adaptation Framework, is to adapt, or is to provide the same level of priority to adaptation as is given to mitigation, so that the developing countries can adapt to climate change so that their vulnerability can be reduced. So friends, this United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change has led from the front, has laid down the framework convention, and has laid down the instrument under which various protocols can be adopted. But before we deal with the protocols, it is worthwhile that we look at a very important institution in the area of climate change, that is IPCC, or Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. IPCC has its headquarters at Geneva. It was established in 1988 by United Nations Environment Programme, that is UNEP, and World Meteorological Organization, that is WMO. The purpose of establishing this IPCC was to provide scientific data, as we discussed at the outset, that at the time when UNFCCC was adopted, there was not sufficient scientific data to prove that climate change is the result of anthropogenic causes or is caused by anthropogenic reasons. And this lack of scientific data therefore was responsible for non-adaptation of national policies and international measures. And that is why IPCC was created to provide scientific data on climate change and the effects of climate change on environment, on socioeconomic conditions. And therefore, the aim of establishing IPCC was to make assessment of climate change, to provide scientific data on climate change, so that its reports can form the basis of international and national legal instruments to control and combat climate change. Further, the aim was to analyze the impact of climate change on the environment and socioeconomic conditions, and to explore what are the future risks associated with climate change, and also to provide policy guidance on developing approaches to combat, mitigate, and adapt to climate change. And if we look at the working of this IPCC, IPCC has so far completed 5 assessment cycles and is in 6th assessment cycle, which is likely to be completed in near future in 2022. IPCC reports have formed the basis of adaptation of United Nations Framework Convention. IPCC reports have formed the basis of adaptation framework. IPCC has helped the United Nations and the countries to make policies for adaptation and mitigating to climate change. Therefore, it performs a very, very important function. If you look at the organizational structure of IPCC, IPCC has established 3 working groups. Working Group 1 on physical science basis, Working Group 2 on impacts, adaptation and vulnerability, and Working Group 3 on mitigation of climate change. IPCC has a very unique advantage. It has a big team, huge team of experts and scientists from across the globe, and it also includes members, intergovernmental members from various countries. Therefore, the NGOs on one side, the experts on another, and then the representation of the governments. Therefore, the IPCC has an edge in devising policies and in advising the United Nations Framework Convention as well as the national governments in making taking the measures for adaptation and mitigating climate change. If you look at the organizational structure, at the top there is IPCC plenary, which takes the major decisions regarding the budgeting, regarding the policy measures, election of the chairs of IPCC, the task force, the work budgets, the work plans, the budgets, etc. And it also considers the reports of IPCC. Then there's IPCC Bureau, which consists of 34 members presently, including the IPCC chair, chairs and vice chairs of working groups and task force. And then ExCom, or what we call as Executive Committee, whose basic job is to facilitate the coordination between working groups and task forces. As we said, since its establishment, it has already completed 5 assessment circles, and its reports have been very instrumental, most importantly, in adoption of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the first report of this IPCC that brought climate change to the forefront, and it paved the way for adoption of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Next, friends, we are going to discuss Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol was adopted in Japan, Kyoto. Now, it is a protocol which is adopted under United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. We have just discussed that. But there was one big disadvantage of UNFCCC. Though it is the first international instrument dealing primarily, majorly with the climate change, but it did not lay down any specific time-bound targets. And therefore, as soon as the convention entered into force, within 1 year of the implementation of the convention, it was revised. It was found that you need to set specific targets for reduction of greenhouse gases in a time-bound manner so that the objectives of the convention can be achieved. And accordingly, when on 21st March 1994, when UNFCCC entered into force, the negotiations began immediately thereafter, within an year or so, for the adoption of a protocol. And the protocol was negotiated and was finally adopted on December 11, 1997 in Kyoto, Japan, by consensus with more than 150 countries on board. The protocol is therefore referred to as Kyoto Protocol, being adopted in Kyoto. The main feature of this Kyoto Protocol is that it laid down mandatory targets for reduction of greenhouse gases emissions, which were accepted by leading developing nations of the world, and therefore the protocol provided for reduction of emission of 6 major greenhouse gases, that is carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride. In 2001, at Marrakesh, Morocco, detailed rules for the implementation of Kyoto Protocol were adopted. In addition, the funds have been created, Special Climate Fund has been created to finance projects. Least developed countries funds have been created in 2003. The protocol finally entered into force in 2005. It must be remembered here that United States of America did not ratify the protocol. And it was only when the Russian Federation ratified the protocol in November 2004 that the protocol was set to enter into force in 2005. Therefore, one of the major drawbacks of Kyoto Protocol was that it was not adopted by two leading greenhouse gas emitters, that is the United States of America and China, who have not ratified the Kyoto Protocol. The object of this Kyoto Protocol was to reduce emission of greenhouse gases by at least 5% below 1990 levels. That is not only to bring them at par with 1990 levels, but to bring them at least 5% less than 1990 levels in the first commitment period, that is between 2008 to 2012. The protocol, being under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, is based on that doctrine of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities, and therefore different targets were set for different countries. Like for European Union, the target was to bring it below 8% of 1990 levels, 6% below 6% for Canada, Hungary, Japan, Poland, and 7% for USA, but USA never ratified the protocol. It signed it, but it never ratified it, and therefore it could not be implemented. But when we look at the implementation, European Union was actually able to go beyond their stipulated target during the first commitment period. But then the drawback was that not only that China and United States not ratify it, but Canada also withdrew from the protocol in 2011, claiming that the protocol is not workable because the highest emitters of greenhouse gases, that is China and USA, are not part of it, they are not ratified, and therefore the protocol cannot be worked out. The protocol, as we said, the first commitment period was from 2008 to 2012, and therefore it was set to expire in 2012. And accordingly, on 8th of December 2012, at Doha, Qatar, Doha Amendment to Kyoto Protocol was adopted so as to bridge the gap from 2013 to 2020. The second commitment period was introduced, which was to be effective from 1st of January 2013 and was to end by 31st December 2020. This protocol, the second commitment period, introduced a revised list of greenhouse gases, and another gas was added to it, that is nitrogen trifluoride. And the second commitment period prescribed higher emission targets, reduction targets for this period, and it mandated the countries to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 18% of 1990 levels. European Union had agreed to have a joint target of 20%, less than 1990 levels. But the most important and the most difficult thing with the second commitment period was that as of date, only 108 countries have ratified the Doha Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol, as against the requisite number. That means we needed 144 countries to ratify the protocol before it could enter into force. But since it could not be ratified by 144 countries, it has never entered into force. India ratified it in 2017. New Zealand, Japan and Russia have decided not to participate in the second commitment period, and accordingly, in the absence of US, China, Russia, Japan, the total greenhouse gases covered by the second commitment period is not more than 20% of the total GHG emission, and hence that means that the Kyoto Protocol is dealing only with meager less than 20% of the total GHG emissions. If we look at the Kyoto Protocol, it provided a clean development mechanism. Clean development mechanism allows flexibility in the protocol. As we said, the basic liability was fixed on Annex A countries or Annex 1 countries, that is the developed countries. And therefore, they were mandated to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions before up to 1990 levels and further beyond to reduce it below 1990 levels. And they could have achieved this target not only by reducing greenhouse gases in their own countries, but also to achieve this by sponsoring emission reduction projects in developing countries and earning saleable certified emission reduction credits. These credits are equal, one credit is equivalent to 1 ton of carbon dioxide, which can be used to achieve reduction targets. Therefore, what the developed countries could have done? Number one, they could have reduced the GHG emission in their country. Secondly, they can finance projects for reduction of greenhouse gases in developing countries, and they can earn saleable certified emission reduction credits. For example, they can finance projects like electrification of villages based on solar power, and therefore they can earn those credits. This mechanism became operational in 2006, and since then it has more than 1,650 projects which are registered under this. The protocol further allowed flexibility by providing for joint implementation. That means an Annex B country can collaborate with another Annex B country and have a project in that country, whereby they can jointly have a project in another country and earn targets, and achieve their emission reduction targets. The first commitment period created carbon market as well. That is, it allowed parties with emission reduction responsibility to sell their unused units of emission reduction targets. As we said, that the targets were specified, that each country have to reduce their greenhouse gas emission up to 1990 levels and below 5% of that in the first commitment period. So therefore, those countries who have been allowed to have emission up to a certain level, but they have not utilized it, they can sell their assignment units, which is known as carbon trading. So a trading market was created where one country which has not achieved its GHG level, that means its greenhouse gases emission is less than the level up to which it is authorized, it is allowed to emit, it can sell its targets and earn credits therefore. Now, as we said, that second commitment period of Kyoto Protocol was to begin on 1st of January 2013 and was to continue till 31st December 2020. But since it could not be ratified by the requisite number of countries, and therefore even otherwise it was to expire by 2020, therefore another instrument was needed to replace the Kyoto Protocol, and accordingly Paris Agreement was adopted at Paris in the 21st Conference of Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 2015. The agreement was due to enter into force when the parties who account for at least 55% of the total greenhouse gas emissions ratified the agreement. Accordingly, the agreement entered into force on 4th of December 2016 on ratification by requisite number of countries. Paris Agreement has been seen as a major breakthrough in international concern for climate change, And the shift in Paris Agreement is visible. In Kyoto Protocol, only the select developed countries were mandated, they were obligated to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Whereas the Paris Agreement provides for a broader network. It calls all the nations of the world to contribute in mitigating to climate change by limiting emission of greenhouse gases. When we look at the aims and objectives of Paris Agreement, the main aim of Paris Agreement is to reduce global temperature increase up to a maximum of 2 degrees from pre-industrial levels. That is the main aim. However, the more ambitious aim is to curtail the global temperature rise up to 1.5 degrees from the pre-industrial levels. And therefore, and also to increase adaptability to climate change and to promote low greenhouse gas emission development, maintaining balance between food production and development. The aim of this Paris Agreement is to ensure strengthening of sustainable development and to strengthen resilience towards climate change. The agreement aims at ensuring financial flows and assistance in consonance with low GHG emission and climate resilience development. Paris Agreement is also entered into under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and hence is also based on the same doctrine of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. This agreement takes into account that the global emission of greenhouse gases is yet to peak, because there are so many developing and least developed countries who also have got right to develop, and in the process of development they will also be emitting greenhouse gases, and therefore the emission of greenhouse gases is yet to rise. Therefore, what this agreement is providing it, that this GHG emission should peak as early as possible, and thereafter there should be substantial cuts in that, so that the temperature increase can be limited at the max to 2 degrees Celsius from the pre-industrial levels. The agreement has mandated all the parties to submit to the conference of parties the intended national determined contributions. That means their action plan of that country to contain climate change and to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. These INDCs are required to be communicated every 5 years, and the agreement is basically looking at or calling for enhancing and conserving the sinks of greenhouse gases, that is the conservation of forests, increasing the forest covers, and also to preserving of oceans. And therefore the agreement calls for inter-country cooperation and coordinated approach in implementation of INDC. The Paris Agreement of 2015 also raised emphasis on adaptation. As we discussed that after 2010 Cancun adaptation framework, the focus has now shifted to giving equal primacy to adaptation along with mitigation. So Paris Agreement is also aiming towards mitigation, not only towards adaptation, not only towards mitigation. The Paris Agreement has mandated the creation of Green Climate Fund, which is created under UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol, that will function under the Paris Agreement itself, and all the institutions which were created like Green Climate Fund under that UNFCCC and Kyoto Protocol, they will work under the Paris Agreement. The first global stocktake of actions to address climate change, that will take place in 2023, and thereafter it will take place after every 5 years. So friends, we have discussed United Nations Framework Convention, the Paris Agreement under it, the Kyoto Protocol first period and second period, and also the role and functioning of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So what we have seen is that the international community is concerned with climate change and has taken adequate steps to deal with climate change and has entered into various treaties. But the fact of the matter is, various countries like USA, who has not only not ratified the Kyoto Protocol, but has also backed out of Paris Agreement. Therefore, these efforts of the United Nations, they cannot succeed until all the nations of the world, they come together and they adopt an agreement, they enter into a settlement where they work together for limiting the climate change. Now, if you look at the Paris Agreement, what will be the effect, that is yet to be seen, because it has just entered into force. However, once the US has backed out of it, which is one of the largest emitters of greenhouse gases, it is also perhaps going to meet the same fate as Kyoto Protocol first and second commitment period. We have seen the US backing out of the Kyoto Protocol. We have seen that in the second phase of the second commitment period, 2013 to 2020, again many countries have backed out. The Canada has already backed out. Therefore, not only that the Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement are dealing with not more than 20% of the total greenhouse gas emissions, but various countries are already backing out of these arrangements. And accordingly, how we are able to combat climate change, it is yet to be seen. Thank you.